Welcome to Idea Spark, where we explore fascinating psychological and philosophical ideas that challenge how we think about ourselves and the world. This video is divided into insightful segments, each one unpacking a unique theory or experiment to spark your curiosity and reflection. Perfect as background while studying, relaxing, or falling asleep, these thought-provoking concepts will keep your mind engaged without distraction. If you enjoy deep dives into the human mind and philosophy, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content that inspires and informs your journey. Let's get started. Block 1. Psychology of the Self segment. 1. The Spotlight Effect. No one's watching as closely as you think. Ever walk into a room and feel like all eyes are on you? Like everyone noticed the small stain on your shirt, or how your voice cracked when you answered the question? That's the spotlight effect, our brain's tendency to dramatically overestimate how much other people notice us. But here's the twist. Most people are too busy thinking about themselves to notice you. Just like you were worried about your shirt, they're worrying about their own. We're all living in our own little spotlight. This realization is freeing. It means you can take risks, make mistakes, be bold. Because in the end, most people won't even remember that awkward thing you said last week. You are not as exposed as you think. And that's a gift. What would you do if you knew no one was watching as closely as you feared? Segment 2. Imposter Syndrome. The lie we tell ourselves. You've made it somewhere meaningful. A new school, a new job, a new opportunity. But a voice in your head whispers, "You don't belong here. You're just faking it. Sooner or later, they'll all find out." That's imposter syndrome, and it affects even the most successful people. The reason? Because we see our own flaws and doubts up close, but only see others' highlight reels. But you're not faking it. You're growing. Real imposters don't worry about being imposters. That doubt? That's the proof you care. Don't wait for permission to believe in yourself. You're already doing the work. Segment 3. Locus of Control. Who's driving your life? Imagine your life is a car. The locus of control is about who's behind the wheel. If you believe your life is shaped by your own choices, you have an internal locus. If you believe it's mostly fate, luck, or external forces, you have an external locus. Here's the truth. Neither is entirely wrong. But the more you reclaim the wheel, the more empowered your life becomes. You might not control the road, but you choose the speed, the direction, and how you react to every twist and turn. Even when the world feels out of control, your choices still matter. Segment 4. Cognitive Dissonance. When your brain fights itself. Ever tell yourself you don't care about something, only because you couldn't get it? That's cognitive dissonance, the discomfort we feel when our beliefs don't match our actions. To reduce the tension, we adjust either the belief or the behavior, but often in the wrong direction. We lie to ourselves to feel okay. But what if, instead, we faced that discomfort head-on? What if we asked why we feel conflicted and used it as a compass for growth? Discomfort isn't weakness. It's the first sign of self-awareness. Segment 5. False Consensus Effect. You're not the only one, but you're not everyone. Have you ever assumed everyone sees the world the way you do? That your opinions, likes, dislikes, and sense of normal are just standard? The false consensus effect tricks us into thinking our worldview is more common than it really is. But everyone lives in a different mental ecosystem, shaped by unique experiences and biases. Real wisdom comes from knowing that your version of reality is just one of many. Understanding others begins with questioning your own assumptions. Segment 6. The Pygmalion Effect. You rise to meet belief. There's something powerful about expectation. The Pygmalion effect shows us that when others believe in us, we perform better. When a teacher expects a student to succeed, their grades often improve. When a parent sees leadership in their child, that child grows into it. But here's the secret. You can be your own believer. Talk to yourself like someone you believe in. Set higher expectations. Look in the mirror and see potential, not limits. Sometimes, the first step to becoming something more is believing you already are. Block 2. Behavior and Decision-Making Segment. 7. The Framing Effect. How you say it changes what you see. Imagine you're told a surgery has a 90% survival rate. Sounds good, right? Now imagine you're told the same surgery has a 10% death rate. Not quite as comforting. That's the framing effect. Our choices are influenced not just by facts, but by how those facts are presented. Two identical truths can trigger completely different reactions just by changing the angle. It's a reminder that we don't see reality. We see versions of reality shaped by words, context, and emotion. Next time something feels urgent, ask yourself, is it the truth or just how it was framed? Segment 8. Delay Discounting. Why we choose now over better later. We know we should save money. We know eating healthy matters. But somehow, the short-term win keeps beating the long-term reward. This is delay discounting, the tendency to undervalue future gains in favor of instant gratification. It's why we hit snooze, why we procrastinate, why long-term goals often feel like someday. But what if we trained ourselves to visualize future rewards more vividly? To feel tomorrow's joy as clearly as today's temptations? Discipline isn't about denial. It's about remembering what you're building toward. Segment 9. Loss Aversion. Losing hurts more than winning feels good. We hate to lose. Research shows we'll go to greater lengths to avoid a loss than to gain an equivalent win. This is loss aversion. It's why people hold on to bad investments, why we stay in toxic relationships, why we fear letting go, even when we know it's the right thing to do. But growth often means releasing what no longer serves us. And while loss feels painful, it's often the price of progress. Letting go isn't failure. It's space for something better. Segment 10. Social Proof. If everyone's doing it. Ever laughed at a joke only because the crowd did? Bought something because it had 5 stars and 10,000 reviews? That's social proof, our brain's shortcut to safety. If others approve, it must be good, right? But the crowd isn't always right. Herds can stampede off cliffs. Trends can be traps. Be aware of the pull to conform, not because it's always wrong, but because it's often invisible. Popularity isn't proof of value. Ask yourself, what do you really think? Segment 11. The IKEA Effect. We love what we build. People will pay more for furniture they assemble themselves than for something ready-made, even if the quality's worse. That's the IKEA effect. We value things more when we put effort into them. This applies far beyond furniture. Ideas, art, relationships, even careers. We fall in love with the things we invest ourselves into. So don't be afraid of the work. Don't wish for life to be pre-assembled. The effort is part of the meaning. If you build it, you'll care about it more. And that's the point. Segment 12. The Default Effect. We stick with what we're given. Set a program to opt in and few people join. Flip it to opt out. Suddenly, participation skyrockets. That's the default effect. We tend to stick with the path of least resistance. It happens in everything from organ donor rates to retirement plans. And in our personal lives, too. But here's a question. Are you living by choice or by default. Your settings can be changed. You don't have to stay where someone else left the cursor. If you're still watching, thanks for sticking around. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into psychology and philosophy. Your support helps me keep creating these videos. Hit that bell to never miss a new idea that could change the way you see the world. Block 3. Reality and Perception Segment 13. The Invisible Gorilla. What you miss while you're looking. A famous experiment asked people to count basketball passes. In the middle, a person in a gorilla suit walks through. Half the viewers never notice. This is inattentional blindness. Our brain tunes out anything it deems irrelevant, even if it's a gorilla in plain sight. It's not just visual. We miss opportunities, truths, even people, because our focus creates blinders. What are you so focused on that you might be missing the obvious? Segment 14. Perceptual Set. You see what you expect. A child sees clouds shaped like animals. A scientist sees chemical symbols in the same pattern. The mind frames reality through past experiences and expectations. This is a perceptual set. Our mental bias shapes what we perceive. Ever misheard a word until you saw it written? Or misread someone's tone because of how you felt? Your brain fills in blanks, not with truth, but with predictions. What if your reality is just your brain? Guessing. Segment 15. The Ship of Theseus. What makes something itself? If you replace every plank of a ship one by one, is it still the same ship? This ancient thought experiment, the Ship of Theseus, asks what defines identity. Is it the parts or the continuity? Now ask yourself, if every cell in your body renews, are you still you? You're not who you were yesterday, but that doesn't mean you're someone else. Segment 16. Sensory Adaptation. The background becomes invisible. Walk into a room with a strong scent. You notice it right away, but 10 minutes later, you barely smell it. That's sensory adaptation. Your brain stops responding to constant stimuli so you can focus on what's new or changing. This explains not just smells, but why we take things for granted. A steady job, a loving friend, even peace. Sometimes we don't need more. We just need to notice what we already have. Segment 17. The map is not the territory. Our models are not reality. We use language, beliefs, and labels to understand the world, but they're just maps, useful but incomplete. As philosopher Alfred Korzybski said, the map is not the territory. No word can fully describe a person. No theory can contain all of reality. Confusing the two leads to prejudice, misunderstanding, and stagnation. Stay curious. The real world is always bigger than your mental model of it. Segment 18. The brain in a vat. Are we living in a simulation? What if your body doesn't exist? What if your brain is floating in a vat, fed electrical impulses by a computer? This is a classic thought experiment in epistemology, exploring whether we can truly know anything about the external world. Sound far-fetched? It's not so different from VR or even dreams. Your brain already constructs reality through electrical signals. Whether or not it's real, what you do with it still matters. Block 4. Self and Identity. Segment 19. The Looking Glass. Self? You are who you think others think you are. Imagine never seeing your own face, only reflections in others' eyes. That's the essence of Charles Horton Cooley's Looking Glass Self. Our identity is shaped not by who we are, but by who we believe others see. You walk into a room. You smile, hoping they think you're confident. If they smile back, you feel reassured. If they don't, you shrink. We build ourselves in 3 steps. We imagine how we appear to others. We imagine their judgment. We feel pride or shame based on that imagined judgment. It's not just about popularity. It's deeper. Our entire sense of self-worth can be built on guesses. But the terrifying part? We might be wrong. Completely. How often have you obsessed over what someone might think, only to find out they weren't even paying attention? Who are you when no one's watching? That answer might be closer to the real you than any reflection in someone else's eyes. Segment 20. Narrative Identity. You're not a person. You're a story. Think about your life. What pops into your mind? Probably not a list of facts. You remember stories, your first heartbreak, your proudest moment, the night everything changed. According to psychologist Dan McAdams, this is narrative identity, the internalized story you tell yourself about who you are, where you've been, and where you're going. You're the author, but also the main character. And just like a novel, you edit. Some parts get highlighted, others buried. But here's the twist. The story isn't fixed. People change the narrative all the time. You can reframe trauma as a turning point. You can decide a failure made you stronger. And in doing so, you don't just change the story. You change yourself. Your identity isn't set in stone. It's a living script. So if you don't like the chapter you're in, maybe it's time to write a new one. Segment 21. The Illusion of the Self. There is no core you. You wake up every day and feel like you're you. But if we peel back the layers, memories, habits, personality traits, what's left? According to Buddhist philosophy and modern neuroscience alike, the self might be an illusion, a convincing one, but a construct nonetheless. There is no single, unchanging soul behind your eyes. Just a bundle of thoughts, sensations, and experiences constantly shifting. Think about it. You're not the same person you were 5 years ago. You think differently when you're angry versus calm. Even your memories are unreliable and change each time you recall them. So what anchors you? Maybe nothing. Maybe we're like flames, constant motion, no fixed substance. And maybe that's not frightening, but freeing. If the self is fluid, then growth isn't betrayal. It's natural. You're not breaking away from yourself. You're becoming. Segment 22. The Mirror Test. Do you know that you exist? Put a mark on an elephant's forehead, then show it a mirror. If it touches the mark on its own head, not the mirror, it's passed the mirror test, a measure of self-recognition. Humans usually pass around 18 months old. So do elephants, dolphins, and magpies. But think about that. Not all creatures realize they are themselves. So what does self-awareness mean? Is it just recognizing your reflection? Or is it the ability to ask, who am I? Why am I like this? Could I change? Some people go through life reacting, never reflecting, never turning inward. But reflection is the start of everything. Growth, healing, purpose. Maybe the mirror isn't glass. Maybe it's the questions we dare to ask ourselves. Segment 23. The Proteus Effect. You become the mask. In virtual reality experiments, people who wore tall, attractive avatars behaved more confidently, even after taking the headset off. This is called the Proteus Effect. Your behavior adapts to your self-image, even if that image is artificial. Think about how you dress, what you post, what roles you play. Every identity becomes a costume we wear, until it wears us. Social media makes this even stronger. You curate a version of yourself, and over time, you start living up to it, or hiding behind it. But the reverse is true too. Try on the identity of someone brave, generous, focused. Then live like it's true. Eventually, it just might be. You're not faking it till you make it. You're training your brain to become. Special block. The story of you. Understanding narrative identity. When someone asks, "Who are you?" you don't recite your height or your blood type. You tell a story. I've always been the quiet one, the observer in the background. I'm the one who picks up the pieces when things fall apart. I failed, but I learned, and now I'm better for it. This story, fluid, personal, powerful, is your narrative identity. Coined by psychologist Dan McAdams, this idea explains how we each form a sense of self through an internal story, stitching together memories, feelings, and interpretations into a tale we carry with us. It's not just what happened to you, it's how you frame it. The same childhood, the same trauma, the same success can lead to entirely different identities, depending on the story you choose to tell. One person says, "I was abandoned. That's why I can't trust anyone." Another says, "I was abandoned. That's why I work so hard to show up for others." Both stories are true, but each shapes a different version of the self. Narrative identity doesn't just reflect who you are. It becomes who you are. Think of it like a mental screenplay where you are both actor and author. And just like a screenplay, it goes through revisions. Some chapters you want to forget. Others you replay endlessly. But all of them influence what you believe you can or can't do next. Here's the kicker. The brain is wired to prioritize coherence over accuracy. So sometimes we bend memories or overemphasize patterns just to make our story make sense, even if it keeps us trapped in roles like the failure, the burden, or the person who always gets left behind. But what if you rewrote it? Not to lie, not to erase, but to reframe with compassion. You were not just hurt. You survived. You didn't just lose. You adapted. You didn't just fall. You got back up. By changing the story, you change the lens through which you see your future. You gain authorship, power, meaning. So ask yourself, if your life were a book, are you proud of the story you're telling? If not, this is your invitation to edit, to retell, to reclaim, because your story isn't finished. And the next chapter? That's in your hands. Block 6. Illusions of Control. When you think you're driving the car, segment 25. The button that does nothing. Have you ever pressed a crosswalk button and nothing happened? What if I told you many of those buttons don't work and haven't for years? They exist purely to give you the illusion of control, and it works. Because feeling in control soothes our anxiety, even if that control is completely imaginary. Psychologist Ellen Langer discovered this in the 1970s. Her studies revealed that people believe they can influence outcomes based on chance, from dice rolls to lottery tickets, just by acting with confidence or ritual. The mind would rather believe a lie that brings comfort than face a truth that brings helplessness. But how often do we choose comfort over clarity, just to feel like we're in control? Segment 26. We're wired for control. This illusion isn't just psychological, it's biological. Our brains crave predictability and influence. It's part of our evolutionary survival toolkit. Control means safety. Safety means survival. That's why people touch airplane wings before takeoff, wear lucky socks to job interviews, or believe their rituals will keep loved ones safe. These actions give meaning to the meaningless, but they also reveal a deeper truth. We're not just rational creatures. We're meaning makers. And when chaos strikes, we need to believe we can still steer the ship, even if we're lost at sea. So what do you do when the steering wheel isn't even connected? Segment 27. When control becomes a cage. Here's where it gets dangerous. This illusion can turn against us. When bad things happen, we blame ourselves. If I'd just done X, maybe Y wouldn't have happened. Children blame themselves for divorce. Victims of abuse blame their choices. Because guilt, as painful as it is, can feel safer than accepting we had no control. It's not your fault, but your brain sometimes convinces you otherwise. Because believing you're in control is more comforting than admitting you're not. How often do we punish ourselves for things that were never in our hands to begin with? Segment 28. Stoicism. Surrendering with strength. So what's the way out? The Stoics, ancient philosophers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, believed in a powerful principle. Control what you can. Let go of what you can't. You don't control the weather. You control how you dress for the storm. You don't control the past. You control the story you tell yourself about it. Letting go isn't weakness. It's clarity. It's the first step toward peace. Because in a world full of chaos, your response is your strongest power. What could you become if you stopped trying to control everything but yourself? Block 7. Learned helplessness when giving up feels like the only option. Segment 29. The dogs that gave up. In the 1960s, psychologist Martin Seligman conducted a famous experiment that changed how we understand motivation and despair. He placed dogs in harnesses and administered mild electric shocks they couldn't escape. Initially, the dogs tried to avoid the shocks, but after repeated attempts, they stopped even trying. What was striking is that when the door to escape was later opened, these dogs didn't take it. They had learned helplessness, a deep belief that no matter what they did, they couldn't change their situation. This mindset, born from experience, trapped them in passivity. It's a sobering example of how learned helplessness works, not through physical inability, but through a mental barrier that convinces us we have no control. Have you ever felt stuck, paralyzed by a belief that you can't change your circumstances, even when opportunities might be waiting? Segment 30. When our minds give up. Learned helplessness isn't just an animal phenomenon. It happens in people, often silently and gradually. When someone faces repeated failures, trauma, or uncontrollable stress, the brain can start to accept defeat as inevitable. This acceptance leads to emotional numbness, loss of motivation, and sometimes depression. It's as if the mind protects itself by shutting down the fight. But in doing so, it also shuts down hope. You might see this in students who stop trying after bad grades, or workers who stop searching for better jobs after repeated rejections. It's heartbreaking because the feeling of powerlessness is real, but sometimes it's based more on perception than actual limitations. What areas of your life might you have silently given up on? Not because change is impossible, but because you believe it is? Segment 31. Breaking the cycle. The bright side of learned helplessness is that it can be undone. Psychologists discovered that with the right interventions, people can retrain their brains to see possibility again. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, for example, helps individuals identify negative beliefs and replace them with empowering ones. Starting small is key. Even tiny successes can build momentum, rewiring the brain's sense of control and hope. Imagine learning to ride a bike. Falling repeatedly feels discouraging, but each time you try, you get a little better. Until eventually, you can ride on your own. It's about reclaiming agency, one step at a time. What's one small challenge you could face today that might spark a new belief in your own power. Segment 32. Empowerment through awareness. Simply understanding learned helplessness can be transformational. Awareness is the first step toward breaking free from its grip. When you realize that feeling powerless is sometimes a trick of the mind, it opens up space for action and change. Your brain is wired to keep you safe, but safety doesn't always mean growth. Sometimes, growth demands discomfort and risk. The power to change your story starts with this simple realization. Your mind isn't always telling you the truth. Even in the darkest moments, the potential for change remains. What would your life look like if you truly believed you still held the key to your own freedom? Block 8. The Spotlight Effect. How we overestimate our own visibility segment. 33. The feeling of all eyes on you. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like everyone's eyes were glued to you? Like every little thing you do is on display and judged? That feeling is called the Spotlight Effect, a psychological phenomenon where we overestimate how much others notice us. In one study, participants wore embarrassing T-shirts and were asked how many people would notice. They guessed around 50%, but in reality, fewer than 25% did. Our brains exaggerate our visibility because we live inside our own heads, so everything feels magnified. This spotlight effect can cause unnecessary anxiety, self-consciousness, and even social avoidance. Yet it's mostly an illusion. Most people are too busy focused on themselves to scrutinize us the way we imagine. Next time you feel like the center of attention, ask yourself, how many people are truly watching, and how much do they actually care? Segment 34. Why our minds trick us. Why does the spotlight effect happen? Our brains evolved to pay close attention to social cues because being accepted by the group was once vital for survival. This heightened self-awareness helped us avoid social rejection and maintain harmony. But in today's world, this survival instinct can backfire. It can make us hyper-aware of our flaws, mistakes, or awkward moments, blowing them out of proportion. This mental exaggeration makes us forget that everyone else is equally focused on themselves and their own worries. Understanding this helps us take a step back from social anxiety and see ourselves more realistically. How might your social interactions change if you believed most people are more focused on themselves than on you? Segment 35. Using the spotlight effect to your advantage. Interestingly, knowing about the spotlight effect can also be empowering. When you realize people aren't scrutinizing you as much as you think, it frees you to be more authentic, to take social risks, and to express yourself without fear. Think of it like stage lights that seem blinding from backstage. But once you step into the light, you see the audience is mostly in shadow. That knowledge helps performers stay calm and confident. You can train your mind to downplay self-judgment and focus more on connection and presence. What bold step could you take if you knew the spotlight wasn't really on you? Segment 36. Breaking free from social anxiety. Social anxiety often feeds on the spotlight effect, convincing us that every little misstep is painfully obvious and will ruin our social standing. But the truth is more forgiving. People forget mistakes quickly and are more compassionate than we expect. One practical technique is to shift focus outward, actively listening, asking questions, and engaging with others. This not only reduces self-consciousness, but builds genuine connection. The spotlight effect is a reminder that our fears often exaggerate reality. Recognizing this can give us the courage to step forward anyway. What would happen if you stopped trying to control how others see you and just showed up as your true self? Block 9. Cognitive dissonance. The mind's struggle for consistency. Segment 37. What is cognitive dissonance? Cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort we feel when holding conflicting beliefs or when our actions don't align with our values. Imagine caring about your health but continuing to smoke. This tension pushes us to resolve the conflict. We might change our actions or adjust our beliefs to reduce the discomfort. This drive for consistency influences many of our decisions, often without us realizing it. Have you ever found yourself justifying something to avoid feeling uneasy inside? Segment 38. How we reduce the discomfort. To ease dissonance, people change behavior, alter beliefs, or rationalize contradictions. For example, a smoker might say, "I only smoke occasionally, so it's not a big deal." These mental adjustments protect our self-image but can keep us stuck in harmful patterns. Avoiding or dismissing conflicting information is another common strategy. When have you caught yourself bending reality to feel better about a choice? Segment 39. The power of dissonance in change. Despite the discomfort, cognitive dissonance can drive positive change. Feeling inconsistent might motivate someone to quit smoking or rethink beliefs. Awareness of this tension helps us confront uncomfortable truths instead of hiding from them, pushing us toward growth and new habits. What belief or habit might you reconsider if you faced dissonance directly? Segment 40. Dissonance in social and political beliefs. Cognitive dissonance also influences how we handle social and political ideas. When challenged, we often reject or reinterpret information to preserve our worldview. This can lead to polarization and misunderstanding. Recognizing dissonance in ourselves and others can promote openness and empathy, helping us engage more thoughtfully with different perspectives. How might understanding cognitive dissonance change your approach to opposing opinions? Block 10. The Bystander Effect. When we stay silent. Segment 41. What is the bystander effect? The bystander effect is a psychological phenomenon where individuals are less likely to help someone in need when others are present. It's counterintuitive. More witnesses don't increase the chance of help. They often decrease it. This happens because each person assumes someone else will intervene, diffusing personal responsibility. Imagine hearing someone calling for help in a crowded place, but nobody moves. That hesitation can cost lives, and it shows how powerful social context is in shaping behavior. Have you ever hesitated to help because you thought someone else would? Segment 42. Causes of the bystander effect. Several factors contribute to this effect. Diffusion of responsibility means no one feels solely accountable. Social influence makes people look to others for cues, and if no one acts, they assume intervention isn't needed. Fear of embarrassment or making a mistake also holds people back. Understanding these causes helps us become more aware and encourages us to act rather than freeze or look away. When was a time you noticed social influence shaping your decisions? Segment 43. Overcoming the bystander effect. Awareness is the first step. Research shows that when people feel directly responsible, they're much more likely to help. Calling out specific individuals, "You in the blue shirt," reduces diffusion of responsibility and increases action. Training and education can prepare people to respond confidently. Small acts of courage can create a ripple effect, inspiring others to follow. What small action can you take today to break the silence in moments that matter? Segment 44. The Bystander Effect. Today, the bystander effect isn't just about emergencies. It shows up in everyday life, like bullying or online harassment. Being a passive observer can let harm continue. Social media has added complexity, but also opportunity for bystanders to intervene safely and support victims. How can you use your voice and presence to make a difference, even in subtle ways? Block 11. The Spotlight Effect. When we feel everyone's watching, segment 45. Understanding the spotlight effect. The spotlight effect is a cognitive bias where we overestimate how much others notice our actions, appearance, or mistakes. We think we're in the center of attention far more than reality suggests. For example, tripping in public may feel like a huge embarrassment, but most people barely register it. This bias often increases social anxiety and self-consciousness, limiting our freedom to be ourselves. Recognizing the spotlight effect helps us gain perspective and ease our worries about judgment. Have you ever felt overly exposed in a situation where nobody was really paying attention? Segment 46. Why does the spotlight effect occur? Our minds are naturally centered on our own experiences. Because we live inside our own heads, we assume others share the same focus. This egocentrism leads us to misjudge the attention others give to us. In reality, most people are preoccupied with their own concerns, not scrutinizing us as closely as we imagine. How would your behavior change if you truly believed no one was closely watching? Segment 47. How the spotlight effect influences behavior. This bias can hold us back from taking risks, speaking up, or expressing ourselves authentically. We may avoid social events or new experiences due to fear of embarrassment. On the flip side, it can also motivate us to present ourselves well. Understanding this balance helps us navigate social situations with more confidence and less fear. What's one risk you avoided because you feared too much attention? Segment 48. Breaking free from the spotlight effect. To overcome this bias, remind yourself that others are not as focused on you as you think. Practice self-compassion and shift attention from yourself to the moment or others. Mindfulness and cognitive reframing are powerful tools here. When you catch yourself in the spotlight effect, what positive thought can you tell yourself to lighten the pressure? Block 12. The Paradox of Choice. When more is less, segment 49. What is the paradox of choice? At first glance, having more options seems like a good thing. But psychologists have found that too many choices can overwhelm us, leading to decision paralysis and dissatisfaction. This is called the paradox of choice. When faced with an abundance of options, we might struggle to pick one, worry about making the wrong decision, or regret our choice afterward. Think about scrolling through endless playlists or menus and feeling stuck rather than excited. The abundance of choice doesn't always translate to happiness. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by too many options, making it harder to decide? Segment 50. Why does the paradox occur? More options increase expectations, making us set a higher bar for what the perfect choice looks like. When reality falls short, disappointment grows. Also, comparing alternatives can cause regret or buyer's remorse. In some cases, it can even reduce motivation to act, leaving us stuck in indecision. Understanding this helps us realize that sometimes less is more. Simplicity can be freeing. How might reducing your choices in daily life improve your happiness or productivity? Segment 51. How the paradox affects us. Daily, from shopping to career decisions to social life, the paradox shows up everywhere. Apps and platforms often offer endless possibilities, but this flood can reduce satisfaction and increase stress. Paradoxically, having fewer meaningful choices can improve well-being and focus. What's one area of your life where simplifying options might bring more peace? Segment 52. Strategies to beat the paradox. To manage choice overload, limit options consciously. Set clear priorities and criteria. Use routines to reduce trivial decisions and embrace good enough instead of perfection. Practicing gratitude for what we have also shifts focus from what we don't. How can adopting a good enough mindset change your approach to decisions? Block 13. The Placebo Effect. Power of the Mind segment. 53. What is the placebo effect? The placebo effect occurs when a person experiences real improvement in their health or symptoms after receiving a treatment that has no therapeutic value, like a sugar pill. This shows how powerful our mind is in influencing our body's response. The expectation of healing can trigger actual physical changes. Have you ever felt better just because you believed a treatment would work? Segment 54. How does it work? Our brain releases chemicals like endorphins and dopamine when we expect positive results. These neurochemical responses can reduce pain, improve mood, and boost recovery. The mind's anticipation creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. This effect highlights the deep connection between mind and body. What does this teach us about the influence of belief on health? Segment 55. Placebo beyond medicine. Placebo effects aren't limited to medicine. They show up in everyday life, like performing better when we believe we've had enough sleep or feeling more confident with a lucky charm. Our mindset shapes how we experience reality. How might harnessing the placebo effect improve your daily life? Segment 56. Ethical considerations. Using placebos raises ethical questions. Should doctors prescribe treatments that don't work biologically? Research suggests that transparency combined with positive expectation can still trigger placebo benefits, opening paths for ethical use. How do you feel about the power of belief in healing? If you're still watching, thanks for sticking with me. If you're enjoying these deep dives into mind and philosophy, hit that like button and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Your support helps keep this journey going. Let's explore ideas together. Block 14. Cognitive Dissonance. When beliefs and actions clash. Segment 57. What is cognitive dissonance? Cognitive dissonance is the uncomfortable tension that arises when our beliefs, values, or attitudes don't match up with our actions. Imagine knowing smoking harms your health, yet continuing to smoke anyway. That clash between what you believe and what you do creates psychological discomfort. To ease this, our minds look for ways to reduce the gap. By changing beliefs, justifying behaviors, or avoiding conflicting information. This internal tug-of-war is a fundamental part of how we navigate decisions and self-image. Have you ever done something that didn't feel right, only to rationalize it afterward? Segment 58. How we resolve dissonance. People resolve cognitive dissonance in several ways. Some might adjust their beliefs to better fit their actions. Smoking isn't that bad. Others may trivialize the behavior's importance. I only smoke occasionally. Or seek out information that supports their current choices while ignoring contradicting facts. This mental balancing act helps protect our self-esteem and reduces anxiety caused by inconsistency. Can you think of a time you changed your thoughts to feel better about a tough decision? Segment 59. Cognitive dissonance in everyday life. This phenomenon influences many aspects of daily living, from justifying expensive purchases to sticking with unhealthy routines. It also explains why people sometimes reject facts that challenge deeply held views. Changing beliefs is hard when it threatens our identity. Recognizing cognitive dissonance offers a powerful tool for self-awareness, helping us understand why we act the way we do. How might being aware of your own dissonance help you make clearer, more authentic choices? Segment 60. Using dissonance for positive change. Interestingly, cognitive dissonance can be harnessed for growth. By deliberately creating a gap, like setting goals that challenge old habits, we motivate ourselves to align actions and beliefs. Public commitments or writing down intentions can increase this effect, pushing us toward change by making inconsistency harder to ignore. What's one personal habit or belief you could challenge today to spark positive change? Block 15. The Dunning-Krueger Effect. When confidence outpaces competence, segment 61. What is the Dunning-Krueger effect? The Dunning-Krueger effect is a fascinating cognitive bias where people with limited knowledge or skill in a certain area tend to overestimate their abilities. In other words, the less you know, the more confident you might feel about your competence. This happens because, when we lack knowledge, we also lack the ability to recognize our own gaps and mistakes. It creates a false sense of expertise that can affect decisions, conversations, and learning. Have you ever felt absolutely sure about something, only to realize later you missed important details or didn't fully understand the topic? Segment 62. Why does this bias exist? This effect is tied closely to metacognition, our brain's ability to evaluate its own thinking. When someone has limited knowledge, their brain can't accurately assess their own skills or performance because they don't yet grasp what they don't know. Interestingly, people who are highly skilled often underestimate their abilities because they assume tasks are easier or more obvious to others. This creates a paradox where beginners are often more confident than experts. Can you recall a moment when learning more about a subject initially made you doubt yourself? Segment 63. Real-world examples of the Dunning-Krueger effect. We see this bias in many areas of life. A beginner at a sport or hobby might boast about their skill early on, not realizing the depth and nuance they haven't yet encountered. In the workplace, someone with little experience might speak confidently about complex topics, sometimes leading to misunderstandings or poor decisions. On the flip side, experts tend to be humble and cautious, aware of the vastness of what they don't know. Have you noticed this effect play out around you, in yourself or others? Segment 64. How to combat the Dunning-Krueger effect. The key to overcoming this bias is self-awareness. Recognizing that it exists is the first step. Cultivating humility and a genuine curiosity to learn helps keep confidence grounded in reality. Seeking honest feedback, embracing mistakes as learning opportunities, and continuously challenging your knowledge can prevent overconfidence and encourage growth. It's a reminder that true expertise comes with both knowledge and the wisdom to know its limits. How might embracing humility and curiosity help you grow in your personal and professional life? Block 16. The Growth Mindset: How Beliefs Shape Success. Segment 65. What is a growth mindset? The growth mindset is a concept developed by psychologist Carol Dweck that refers to the belief that abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. Unlike a fixed mindset, which assumes talents are innate and unchangeable, a growth mindset embraces challenges as opportunities to improve. This simple shift in thinking can have profound effects on motivation, achievement, and resilience. Think about a skill or talent you once thought you couldn't improve. How would believing you can improve change your approach? Segment 66. The Science Behind Growth Mindset. Research shows that individuals with a growth mindset tend to perform better academically and professionally. This is because they view failures not as reflections of their ability, but as feedback to learn from. Their brains literally respond differently. Embracing challenges triggers neural pathways that promote learning and adaptability. In contrast, a fixed mindset can lead to fear of failure and avoidance of difficult tasks. Have you ever avoided a challenge because you feared it would expose a lack of talent? Segment 67. Applying growth mindset in daily life. The growth mindset can transform everyday experiences, from learning a new language to building relationships. It encourages persistence, openness to feedback, and celebrating effort rather than just outcomes. Parents, teachers, and leaders who promote growth mindset create environments where failure is not feared but welcomed as part of growth. This mindset nurtures long-term success and fulfillment. Can you identify areas in your life where shifting your mindset could help you grow? Segment 68. Overcoming fixed mindset traps. Even with awareness, it's easy to slip back into fixed mindset patterns, thinking, "I'm just not good at this," or "I'll never get it." The key is to catch those thoughts and reframe them. Replace "I can't do this" with "I can't do this yet." This little word, "yet," changes everything. It opens the door to effort, patience, and eventual mastery. Growth mindset is a practice, not a fixed trait. It takes time and conscious effort to cultivate. What limiting beliefs could you reframe to unlock your potential? The growth mindset challenges us to rethink failure, effort, and success. It reminds us that our potential isn't fixed, but something we create every day. How will you apply this powerful idea in your journey? Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more mind-expanding ideas. Stay curious and keep exploring with Idea Spark.